Hello everyone, this is Talal and this video will be all about the digital SAT. Now, as you guys know that the SAT has gone digital, and with along with going digital, there have been many changes that have been proposed and made to the digital SAT as compared with the paper SAT. Now, in this video, we'll try to discuss everything that is there with the digital SAT, so that anyone who is going for the SAT now, he would know what are the different nitty-gritties and what are the different things that are now the components of the SAT. Now, the first thing that we will talk about obviously is the format, right? The SAT is now not governed on the paper. The SAT will now be given on your laptops or your tablets. You have to take your devices to the test center, and that is how you have to give the SAT, right? Now, after the format, the next thing is the fact that the SAT has now gone adaptive. Now, many other tests have been adaptive, right? Like GMAT and GREs and other tests. But College Board has decided that along with bringing it to the digital platform, they have now made the SAT adaptive. Now, what does that mean? They have made for both English and math two sections, reading and writing and math, right? And both of these sections, they have divided them into two modules, right? So module 1 and module 2. So if we take, for example, the example of reading and writing section, the reading and writing section will have two modules, module 1 and module 2. Now, how adaptability will work over here? If a student tends to give the first module or he gets a higher score, a relatively higher score on the first module, he will get a harder second module, right? And if a student fails to get a higher score on the first module, he will get a relatively easier module, easier second module, right? So that is how the adaptability will work. So the difficulty of the second module will depend on how you score on your first module, right? So that is how the test has now been made adaptive, right? Now, the question format, again, just like the paper SAT, all the questions that are there in the English part or the reading and writing part are multiple choice questions. And in the math part, most of the questions, yes, are still multiple choice. And there are a few questions that are student response, or like, we had the grid-ins in the paper SAT. There will be a few questions that will ask you to write the answers, right? So the next thing that we have is the time per question. So if we talk about how much time that we have per question, we have around 70 to 72 seconds for one question in the reading and writing section. And if we talk about math, we have relatively more time, so we have around 90 to 95 seconds per question when it comes to the math section, right? After that, if we talk about the scoring part, again, the scoring has no difference. Previously, the SAT in the paper SAT was, scored out of 1600, in which 800 was given to the English part and 800 was given to the math part. It has been kept the same. So the reading and writing part over here is governed out of 800, and the math section is again scored out of 800, and the total would stay the same, and that is 1600. So that scoring has made no difference, right? So then if we talk about the time, right? So time and the number of questions. So if you talk about the reading and writing part, the reading and writing part has 27 questions per module, and you will have 32 minutes for each of the modules, right? So you will have a total of 54 questions and a total of 64 minutes to solve them, right? So 54 questions and 64 minutes. And when you talk about the math section, right? The math section will have 22 questions per module, and it will give you 35 minutes per module. So that would mean you'll have a total of 44 questions in the math, and you'll have a total of 35 minutes for it. So if you talk about, or if you compare it with the paper SAT as well, the paper has now shortened as if you talk about the time, right? So previously the paper SAT was around 3 hours long. Now the digital SAT is around 2 hours 13-14 minutes long. So you have a lesser, you have 45 minutes have been curtailed from the overall test. So it has been made more focused and shorter, right? Now if we come to the sections, right, the English section over here, the reading and writing section has been curtailed as well, like I talked about, right? It has shorter modules, it has the passages have been curtailed. If you talked about the paper SAT, you have large long passages that had 10-12 questions from each of the passage, But over here in the reading passages, we'll have more passages and we'll have only one question from each of the passage, right? And we'll have reading part and the writing part combined in one section and one module, right? Unlike the papers that had the reading and writing in separate sections. And if you talk about the math part has now calculators in both the sections. Previously in the paper set, calculator was only allowed in one of the sections, but this is not a problem over here, right? So this was all about the SAT. Most of the things have been kept constant, but when you talk about the context of the paper, right, they have changed. If you talk about the reading and writing part, it has been completely overhauled, right? There are many new types of questions that have come in, right? The paper has gone shorter, but it has gone brainier, right? So it will really ask you to push your limits, and it will really ask you to understand all of those concepts. And if you really do that, you will be able to literally score higher on the SAT now. So this was all about digital SAT, and we'll keep on talking about it. And if you have any questions, I would really want you guys to comment on the whatever your query is, and we'll try to have a discussion about it. We'll try to answer your queries, and yeah, this is it. Thank you so much. This was all about the SAT.